Okay, this lesson is from Blitzer, Introductory and Intermediate Algebra for College Students, Chapter 3. The first section that we're going to go over today is going to talk about how to plot points and lines, including vertical and horizontal lines, on a coordinate grid. So basically, a point is sort of like the location of latitude and longitude on a map, if you've ever had to use an atlas where it had multiple pages and there's all these different cities and counties and whatever, and some of them can have a lot of information on the same page. And so in order to help you hone in on a particular street or landmark or whatever, it will have latitude little lines and longitude lines, and it'll tell you like F, 7, look in that area. So if you haven't, go ahead and do that because that'll make a lot of sense. But basically points on a coordinate grid, and a coordinate grid looks like this. A coordinate grid has an x-axis, which is a number line that goes from left to right. It's a horizontal number line where there's a 0 on the number line, and then it has -1, -2, -3, -4, and so forth, and positives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. So the number line goes infinitely in the negative direction and infinitely in the positive direction. The horizontal number line is called the x-axis. There's also a y-axis or a vertical number line. This vertical number line again has a 0 on it, and then it'll have positive numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth on to infinity, and negative numbers -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so forth like that to negative infinity. So this x number line and this y number line, when you put them together or overlay them, is called a coordinate grid. When you intersect the x number line, the y number line, which we call the y-axis, and the x-axis, that intersection is called the origin, which is where both of the zeros of each number line cross. The origin is really important because that's sort of your starting point whenever you're plotting points. So when you're plotting points on the coordinate grid, you begin at the origin right here, and you move along the x-axis first. So you're going to move left or right first, always, and then you're going to go along the y-axis or up and down second. So when given a point such as the point 2, 4, and a point will always be in this format where you have parentheses and you have two numbers, and the numbers can be digits or decimals or positive or negative or whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as it's numbers, like something you could put in a calculator, for example. So these numbers always indicate how many units you're going to go left or right first, comma, then how many units you're going to go up and down. So the left or right is always first along the x-axis, and then the up or down, which is along the y-axis, is second. So you start at the origin, and in this case, you're going to go right 2 units and then up 4 units, and that's going to correspond to this circle right here. But let's say you were playing the game Battleship. I don't know if you've ever played that, but it's a pretty cool game. And your ships are hidden from the other person, and so the other person gives you like these coordinates and tries to, sink your ships. Well, this is similar to that. You want to try to find these areas or these points on this coordinate grid so that if there was a person who couldn't see your graph, you could tell them directly where your point was, and they would know exactly how to get there. For example, if you wanted them to get to this star, you would tell them 8, 2. And so you'd be going 8 to the right and 2 up, because 8 is the first X, left, right, and then 2 is up, down. Now, if the numbers are positive, and it's the first number, if it's positive, it means you're going to move right. But if it's negative and it's the first number, you're going to move left. If it's positive and it's the second number, you're going to go up. But if it's negative and the second number, you're going to go down. So this is positive and this is positive. This is negative and this is negative. Okay, so let's plot some points, all right? So -3 and 5 means I'm going to go 3 units to the left. I'm starting at the origin. And then I'm going to go 5 up because 5 is positive. I'm going to use, for B, I'm going to use 5, go 5 units to the right, because I always go left, right first, and then 3 units down. For this one, I'm going to go 5 units to the right, and I'm going to go 0 units up or down. So I'm going to stay right here. For D, I'm going to go -5 units to the left and then 5 units down because they're both negative. For E, I'm going to go no units left or right. So I'm not going to go left or right. I'm just going to go directly up 4 units. F, I'm going to go start at the origin. I'm going to go no units left or right and no units up or down, sort of like walking blocks. So I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to stay right here at the origin. Does the order matter of the points? Well, let's look. If we plotted the point 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, and we plotted the point 1, 3, they're not the same point. So absolutely the points matter because one of the points is left, right, and the other one is up, down. You can try the plotting the points on the right-hand graph, and this is what you'll get when you finish. Okay, so we plotted some points, okay? Now we're going to talk about coordinates, quadrants of the graph, okay? So if you'll notice, the graph sort of has 4 different sections or 4 quadrants. They're always labeled quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4 in that order. So it sort of looks like the letter C, okay, because you're going to go from 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, sort of like you're making the letter C. So oftentimes you'll be asked, like, which quadrant does a point or something lie in? If the point is actually lying right directly on the x-axis or directly on the y-axis, it's not in a quadrant, you just say it's on that axis. So to determine the coordinate, you first, like I said, you start at the origin and you're going to move left or right first and then up or down. Think of like if you're walking down city blocks and somebody tells you to go so many blocks west and then so many blocks south. You don't cut across, you just kind of have to walk in that grid pattern. Okay, so this is a typo. There we go. All right, so now, before we plotted the point, but now we have a point and we want to find out what the coordinate is, like how to identify what that point is. So we look at point A, and when we started from the origin, we always go left, right first. We went left 3, and it's negative because we went left. And then we went up 4, and 4 is positive because we went up. To get to point B, we went right 5, and then down 5. To get to point C, we did not go left or right at all. We just went straight down 4. To get to point D, we went left 2, but then we didn't go up or down at all. To get to point E, we went left 4 and down 3. So we walked left 4 and then down 3. And again, notice the positives and the negatives. To get to F, we went right 4 and then up 5. Okay, now you try the right side. Here are the answers. Notice that we also noted the quadrants, okay? So the quadrant -3, or A, is in quadrant 2. B is in quadrant 4. And you always use Roman numerals. C lies on the y-axis. D lies on the x-axis, so it's not in a quadrant, it's like on the border. E is here, it's in quadrant 3. F is up here, it's in quadrant 1. All right, which is also the same as your answers for this. Okay? All right, so now that we've plotted points, let's talk about how to plot lines, okay? Because a point has one solution. You can say exactly where a point is by just saying an x and a y coordinate. But a line has many, many, many points on it. So how do you plot a line? Well, whenever you do that, the first thing you do is you choose any value for x. You choose an x It doesn't matter what it is. It's usually a good idea to choose smaller values for x or 0 or something like that to kind of get a feel for where your line is going. The reason you can choose any value for x is because I'm saying if x is substituted into the equation of the line, if x is 2 or 0 or -2 or whatever, I can then solve the equation for y. When I do that, I get an x that I chose, I plug it in, I get a point, and I can just plot these points. And as I plot the points on in a row, you'll notice that the points will line up in a particular order, and then you can use your straight edge to draw the line that you were modeling, or that's modeled by the equation. After you draw the straight line, put arrows on the end, and then that forms the line. The arrows indicate that the line goes on forever and ever and ever. It doesn't end at the graph. So if you look at this graph, let's choose 2 points that are on this line. Well, this point is on the line, which is point 1, 5, because I went 1 right and 5 up. This is another point on the line, so -3 and -3. There's many points on the line, but those are some examples. Okay, so what do we do here? We chose an x. Where did we get that? We just chose it. Any x in the world. We want to know if x is this number, what would y be? So I'm going to plug in the -1 everywhere there's an x. So instead of x, I have -1. 2 times -1 is -2. So if x is -1, then y is -3. And that's my point. If x is 0, then y is -1. If x is 1, then y is 1. I get my x value from over here, and my y value is what I solved for. Okay? So now I have some points. So I can plot these points, and then that'll form the line. -1, -3, 0, -1, 1, 1, and 2, 3. Now, if you've done your math correctly, when you plot the lines, or plot the points, they should line up. They should look like they're forming a line. You draw a straight edge line through it and arrows on the end. You try this one. Here's the correct answer. All right, the last thing we're going to do is to look at horizontal and vertical lines because they're special. Now, horizontal and vertical lines mean that there's only going to be one value for x or one value for y. So this is a vertical line. This is a horizontal line. And they have the general format that x is equal to a constant or y is equal to a constant, meaning that x is always this value or y is always this value, no matter what the other number is. So here, if x is 5 no matter what. I can choose any number I want in the world for y. I'm going to choose a -5 or a 5 or positives. I always like to use 0 because it's easy to work with. Here, so we can plot this line by saying +5, -5. That's my first point. 5 and 0, and 5 and 5. It becomes very clear that x is equal to 5 is a vertical line by just choosing random values for y. Okay? Same thing with y. Y is always -4, no matter what x is. And I'm just choosing random ones. So when x is -4, y is -4, 0, and 4. And it shows that this is a horizontal line, when y is equal to -4. When you try the other side, hopefully this is what you get. Don't worry if your other values that aren't constant don't match mine. You can use any ones you want. You'll still get the same line. Okay.